Today is International Women's Day, and we are going to focus on achievements and barriers women have broken and still continue to break to level the playing field with our male colleagues. Let's look at the likes of Rosa Parks, who demanded racial equality, Harriet Tubman, who helped rescue others from slavery, and Yaa Asantewaa, who fought to protect the Golden Stool. These are some of the women who paved the way for us and were so resilient and didn't hold back. And in most recent times, we've had the likes of first Black First Lady Michelle Obama, Vice President of the United States of America Kamala Harris, and Dr. Ngozi Iweala, head of World Trade Organization. Before we start, I would like to introduce these beautiful ladies. I'll start with Jennifer Anafi-Acquah, who is an assistant producer. And we also have Barbara Dacosta, who is an IT consultant and voice-over artist. And we have Gifty Osei-Bekoe, primary school teacher and founder of Teach Nation. And lastly, Yvonne Tsumasi, senior process engineer and materials scientist. Thank you all ladies for joining me. In society, I believe women have come far, but there's still a long way to go. When we look around us, especially in our workplaces and boardrooms, we tend to see our male colleagues being given higher roles than women. And sometimes women and girls are marginalized and treated as second-class citizens. But before we get to our main point of discussion, what does International Women's Day mean to you and why? I will come to you first, Jennifer.
It's a culmination and a day to highlight, to celebrate each other as women, and also to showcase all that, as you've mentioned, the women who have paved the way, the women who are still paving ways, the women who aren't necessarily, doing anything in the sense of breaking new barriers, but just in their day-to-day lives, in their own families, in their own communities, are actually inspiring others. So International Women's Day, I think, I'm so glad it's an international day that we can celebrate. And I think it's so important, not just to celebrate the women of the past, but the women, all of us that are currently, and the future women that we are raising. So incredibly important day.
Absolutely. And I would like to come to you, Gifty. What does it mean to you and why?
Women's Day for me means to be proud to be a woman, to embrace our feminine side as a woman. It also means to me to appreciate that we're all made in the image of God and to just embrace who we are. It's also a day to honor other women in my sense, in terms of just appreciating that although we're different and some of us are similar, just to embrace how we all are as women.
Can I come to you, Yvonne, as well, please?
Yes, so I agree with what Jennifer and Gifty have said. International Women's Day is a day where we highlight the achievements of women and the things the things we've gone through to come this far. And I think it's also a day that we highlight to show little girls like what they can become. In addition to that, I think as much as we are celebrating women, I think it's also a time where we have to highlight, the challenges that women are still facing and the road, the journey that we still have to go on. For example, a lot of women still do not have, like we suffer from, a lot of women suffer from imposter syndrome. A lot of women still suffer from, economic disabilities. For example, a lot of women do not, a lot of women are not their own people. And so as much as we are celebrating people, we highlight the people in society who are, going ahead in their career, in their life, in whatever aspect of life they are, and to show other people that, they too can.
So can I come to you, Barbara?
I think International Women's Day is just about celebrating women globally, just for being a woman. For a long time, women were looked down upon, seen less as men, less efficient. But with moving times, we've seen that women can actually make a difference and a great impact. And by empowering women, it's very beneficial to communities and globally. So I think it's great that, we have this day to celebrate so that we can look back and see how far we've come. If we think about the 18th century men looking at us now, they'll be so surprised, they'll be so gobsmacked women can work in construction, women can preach, women can do so many things that men can do. So I think it's important to celebrate International Women's Day to show how far we've come and how far we can go. So yeah, it's a great celebration.
And I couldn't agree more. All of you have said very interesting stuff. So I'm sure each and every one of us have someone that inspires us. And I would like each of you to tell us who inspires you and why. So I will come to you again, Jennifer.
So in terms of, that was a really hard one, to be honest, in terms of picking somebody that inspires me. I mean, in the very famous words of Issa Rae, I'm always rooting for everybody black. And that just to mean, I think women of all backgrounds do extraordinary things in every day, even in their day-to-day lives. But for me, the black women that surround me, that I have in my sort of personal sphere, my mum, my sister, my aunties, those women inspire me because I see them on a daily basis. I see what they achieve. I see the challenges that they overcome, and I know the stories. So I'm in close proximity to see those challenges and to learn from their womanhood. And they've also been the people that have guided me into my womanhood. So in terms of women that inspire me, I definitely would say those that are close to me, those that are in my circle, who push me on a daily basis to be the best woman I can be, the best version of myself I can be, and also to show me different ways of being a woman, different ways of womanhood, because it's not all just one thing. Everybody in their womanhood lives it slightly different, and it's really great to see and really empowering to see those in my circle and those around me doing that on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. And how about you, Gifty?
It was quite a hard one, but to pick one that I feel like, although I'm not so close to her or know her, I would say Patricia. The reason why she inspires me is that she just carries so much grace, and just a woman of God. She's a preacher, and every time I listen to her sermons, it always leads me into prayer. And she definitely inspires me in that sense. So I would definitely say Patricia at the moment.
Oh, that's great. And how about you, Yvonne?
I think different aspects of different women inspire me. So, for example, a lot of people, the women that inspire me are women in like positions that I aspire to be in. So, women in tech leadership, and also the women in my circle, my mom, my friends, my sisters. I see the resilience that they apply from day to day. I see the challenges that they go through and how they overcome these challenges, and all of these different people inspire me in different ways.
That's great. And lastly, Barbara, who inspires you?
I'm going to go for, I guess, the first woman that we all fall in love with, my mum. She is my biggest inspiration and my idol, and I honestly look up to her in everything I do. She's the one that's always pushed me, pushed my dreams, and recognized my strengths from very early, and pushed me in ways where she thought would be beneficial and towards my potential. So I'm going to go for my mum. She's great. She's who I want to be, and she's who taught me how to become a woman. So my mum.
Oh, that's amazing. We've got different people from different walks of life that inspires all of us. So upon what women have been through in the past, how important is it for women to lift each other up? I will come to you, Jennifer.
I think it's almost fundamental, to be honest, for women to lift each other up, just because of the history of women worldwide, globally. As Barbara was saying, from how many centuries ago, think about those men and what they would be saying now if they could see what women could achieve and what women have achieved and still have so much more to achieve. And I think a lot of that comes from the support of each other, and the support, that we have as a community to push each other further. Again, as going to Barbara, she's saying with her mum, recognizing her strengths, being able to nurture that within her. I think it's fundamental for women to support and to push each other sort of beyond what maybe individually we can all do, but as a collective, definitely what we can achieve.
I think what we can do to lift up other women is by encouraging them, by helping them with, let's say, for example, if your friend comes to you and they have an idea that they want to accomplish, to not put them down, but try your best to help them as best way as you can, to encourage them with your words, to pray for them if they need prayer. I think there are different ways that we can help other women who need help. And there's a saying that says it takes a village to raise a child. I think it also takes a village to raise a woman as well, in sense of just coming together and truly helping one another push each other to where God has called us to be.
And Yvonne, do you think we are our own enemies, would you say?
I wouldn't say that. I think, there, like, in society, there are people who do not support each other and people who support each other. So I personally do not think it's gender based, because there are a lot of women in my life who have pushed me. For example, like it was mentioned before, my mom also, recognized, that this, opportunity would be good for me, advised me to go into it. My friends, sometimes my friends find opportunities and they think, these are some of the things you've mentioned you're interested in. And so, why not try? This is an opportunity that I found. I think you should apply for it. So I think that in the general sense, I don't think it's gender based. I think there are people who naturally draw people down, whether they are men or women. And I think, in general, women support each other. But if there's a woman that is pulling me down or pulling somebody else down, I wouldn't necessarily think that it's because she's a woman. I would just think that, she as a person, is just pulling someone else down. That's what I think. Yeah.
In our generation, what can we do as women?
Oh, I think women can just be open. I think there's a lot of competitiveness with us being women. So there's a lot of jealousy, and especially if we're trying to do similar things. If I'm opening a hairdresser's and my friend's opening hairdresser's, how willing are they going to be to help? So I think there's a competitiveness, but with that, I think by being open and sharing your secrets and sharing your failures, sharing your strengths, we can all work together to be better, I think. But being open and sharing, I think, and just listening and doing research to see what else is out there, see what other people are doing, without it being in a malicious way to undercut them, but just being open and sharing, I would say.
I did mention earlier, women are breaking barriers. They've accomplished a lot. Also, your job title is IT consultant. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong. In the past, when you say IT consultant, the first thing that comes into your mind is a male person. So how were you able to break into that field?
That's a good question, because I only got into IT over the past 2 years, and it was a man that recommended that I get into it, actually. But in my workplace, I'm one of 3 women. I'm the only Black woman at that. So it was a bit difficult. And I think still, even though, men accept that women have their strengths, in IT, the way I've experienced it, men still sort of go to the men to ask certain technical questions, if I'm being honest. But I do find that there's some of them also that are willing to hear what women bring to the table and what us as women might contribute. I feel like in terms of dealing with clients and customers, women might have that soft touch. There's that stereotype of women's being gentle and softer and having a better approach to things than maybe men do. So within that regard, I think men are able to delegate effectively, but I still see some sexism there little, but I believe with time all this can change, and women will prove ourselves that we are just as efficient as men. We are not the same, we are not equal, but we can both complement each other. But it has been difficult in IT. But more and more women are joining IT in today's society. So I think it's a good thing.
Gifty, I'd like to come to you. Do you think as a woman we have to work twice as hard as men?
I think it depends what position it may be. has a teacher, there's a stereotype that mostly women are teachers. So in that sense, we can look at it, okay, has a man, is there a stereotype with them coming into teaching fields? It depends on what it depends what field it is. So yes, in certain sense, and then no. So it depends, I would say. So I wouldn't want to make it general. So yeah, I would say it depends.
Do you think the way women are treated and perceived is down to societal constructs?
I think that's partly to do with it. I think a part of it is that we are products of our environment, and I think I know, speaking for myself, my parents, yes, they brought me up, yes, my mum sort of brought me up in the way of, you should learn to do all these other quote unquote womanly things, you should learn to cook, you should learn to do this. But I was quite fortunate to also have parents who, my dad very much was, you can do the things that the boys can do, in terms of you speak your mind, you give your opinion, you don't back down just because you're a woman. But I do think that in general, as a society, probably not so much in recent years, but definitely probably in the years of our parents, and maybe even in sort of in like my generation, years of me coming up, that there has been societal pressure, for women to be the softer gender, to be the gender, that you don't put your foot down too hard, you don't ask too much, you sort of, you're a little bit quieter. And I think that definitely has shaped some women in some industries. And I think in a lot of times when when boys are brought up to be boisterous, to be adventurous, to be curious, to sort of almost go into the world and dominate it as if it's their own to do so, I don't think in a lot of cases women or girls are brought up like that. I don't think it's always so common for girls to be brought up with the mentality that the world is also yours, go and conquer it, as if you would tell a boy to do so. And I think that does have consequences when you grow up to be a woman. As Yvonne was saying, that you second guess yourself and your skills, like applying for jobs that you're probably 80% qualified for but wouldn't apply for, whereas a male counterpart may apply for that same job, as Yvonne said, only being 20% qualified for. And I think it's those sort of differences that you sometimes don't realize have maybe been instilled in you, or the traits of those have been instilled in you growing up, because you weren't necessarily told that you can go out and conquer the world and do all of these things that I think some boys are brought up with. But again, that's not everybody. But I do think society and the way that we were brought up has a part to play.
Absolutely. So Barbara, I want to ask you, how much has the way we've been raised hindered our progression?
Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, I'm assuming most of us are African, so you're brought up to be a woman, to look after the home, to be the first person to own up to looking after the kids. But I feel like those gender roles is what keep women in our boxes and think, okay, maybe I shouldn't go and apply for that job. I'm really great at engineering, but when it's time for me to have a child, will they give me maternity leave? Even if I do get maternity leave, when I come back, is my role still available? So you've got all these things going on. So with that core belief of being a woman and being very nurturing and being the caretaker, if that is the only thing instilled into women and to little girls, that's the only thing that they will ever amount to. So I think it's important to have a good balance. Like I said about my role model, my mother, she definitely instilled in me that I need to be a woman. I need to know how to cook and clean. Like, that's paramount. But at the same time, she realized that Barbara was good at drawing. Barbara was good at maths. Let me push her to maybe be an architect. Let me push her to maybe be a maths teacher. So it's important to have a good, healthy balance. But yes, absolutely, certain cultures do hold women down, and certain cultures are outdated, in my opinion, that keep us there. But hopefully with all this awareness and International Women's Day, women can see that we can do more than just be homemakers, even though homemakers not important.
Thank you, Barbara. You are absolutely right. So, Yvonne, you're an engineer. Have you encountered any issues due to the fact that you are a woman?
So I think for the most part, the obstacles were finding mentors that you can relate to. Um, in my line of work, a lot of people that worked in my industry were white male. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's sometimes it's easier to, it's easier to identify with someone that looks like you, someone that comes from where you come from. And another thing is that one of the challenges that I had, especially when I was in grad school, was that there were a lot of people that worked in groups, and it's a little dicey because it has, I think it has very little to do with being a woman than cultural sense, because there were people like a lot of Chinese students will work together, a lot of different sects of students will work together, and you are there like, okay, who do I work with? And so I think, yeah, one, finding people that look like you and finding role models that you can identify with, who have similar backgrounds, that you can see that, okay, this person has been through this, I have this in common with this person. So if this person if this person has been able to achieve this, then maybe I can achieve it too. But seeing someone who doesn't look like you, sometimes you think about different factors that came into play. Maybe this person grew up here, this person had this experience, this person has been playing with engineering toys their whole life, and so maybe they're better than me. And so I think having people that look like you makes it a little easier, and that has been my biggest challenge. Yes.
Thank you. So, Gifty, I would like to come to you. It's a sad truth, but generally, women who acquire higher positions are said to be using their sexuality or femininity to acquire success. What are your views on that?
It's unfortunate that that's even the case, but those biases are true. I don't agree with them, but I do recognize that they are true, and it's unfortunate that's happening. But I do believe, and the stage that we're in right now, a lot of women are getting to positions. And for example, Yvonne, I believe she's an engineer. Many years ago, you wouldn't see that, a woman being an engineer. So I believe those stereotypes will go away. They're unfortunate, but I do believe that we're progressing. So yes.
So I want to bring in pay disparity. Obviously, we all work in different fields, and we tend to encounter where we're in the same position, but we're getting less paid than our male colleagues. So I would like to come to you, Jennifer. Is that something that you've endured?
Most definitely. I mean, I think within my industry, sort of media, I think maybe last year or the year before, there were the BBC and various channels published their sort of on-screen presenters, so their news readers, their sort of entertainment show presenters, and they published, along with other channels, how much each presenter was getting paid, and then it became blindingly obvious the gender-based pay sort of disparity, and that's something that's not just prevalent with on-screen talent within my industry, but also within sort of what behind the cameras, like what I work in, and it's I mean I wouldn't like to hazard a guess at all the reasons why, but I think part of the reasons is that thing I think you hear it time and time again, and that maybe women don't negotiate themselves more money. And I don't, I think one of the solutions possibly is just being incredibly transparent and honest with pay rates and how much people get paid, and sort of having set boundaries. But I think when it's left to things like negotiation, or it's left to things like the employer valuing the employee's work, I think that doesn't help the cause whatsoever. And I think we've got a very long way to go in that. As I mentioned, that publication of the gender pay gap within television was only, I would say, a year or two ago. So it's still incredibly a prevalent big problem within my industry, and I'm sure it's a problem in a lot of other industries.
Going by what Jennifer said, do you think women tend to settle for less in fear of not getting the position that they want?
Yes, I do feel sometimes women settle, and I feel like employers look at women as, sorry to say, but baby making machines. So they're like, if I pay this woman this amount, if she decides to have a kid, she's going to go off for 9 months. I'm going to have to pay her for the first 6 weeks. And then depending on obviously what the company's maternity leave, she might not want to come back. Do I need to replace her? So they're thinking all these things. And I think it's even a tool now to get what we want, being a woman, if I'm being honest, because no boss wants to go in the news or be in the news for discriminating and not paying a woman just because she's a woman. Nobody wants that on their name or in their company's reputation. So I think some women are settling, but I think the majority of women are fighting back, in my opinion. And I think they should definitely fight back.
Would you like to add on, Gifty?
For settling, yeah, I agree with Barbara. I believe some women are settling, unfortunately. And I think it has to do with everything that has happened in the past, in terms of history and feeling if we're worth it for the position. But like I said, again, I am very positive that this will change, but it's unfortunate that is our history and that is our situation at the moment. But there's some women that are also really bold and they would ask for more, which is beautiful. And I do believe there will come a time that most women will be in that position as well, to be bold enough to know what they're worth in terms of the position that they're applying for.
How about you, Jennifer?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a myriad of reasons why some women settle, sort of as Gifty and as Barbara have mentioned. I think when, as a woman, especially as a woman, if you want to, eventually start a family, I think you have all of these things in your head when you're going in for a role, and it almost becomes a bit of a thing that you're grateful for a company to offer you, this much, and you sort of almost don't want to push them too far because you're thinking maybe in a few years I want to be able to take advantage of the maternity package. I also think employers do the same thing where, as Barbara mentioned, where they're looking at you thinking, yeah, she probably is going to leave, at some point for maternity leave. But then that's not every woman's decision. That's not every woman's want or desire. But I do think some women have a preference of safety and security within a company and not rustling any feathers. So we and ah, and then we sort of accept a price that maybe we aren't entirely happy with. Whereas I think a lot of the time men enforce their boldness a little bit more and sort of go in higher and then get higher. And I think maybe I've personally been told, and this is, I'm also very guilty of this within my own industry, that I go in and, I'm very honest about what I'm on and what I'd like. And sort of, I always expect a level of transparency and honesty within my employer to be like, oh, great. Okay, well, we'll give you this then. Whereas I think from speaking to my male colleagues, they go in it's almost obscenely high, knowing that's probably too much. But then you've only got a little bit to negotiate to get to actually a figure that you want. And, for me personally, that's something that I'm learning and I'm trying to be incredibly sort of bold with when going through those pay negotiations. But yeah, I definitely do think there is a part of our sort of womanhood and our societal bring up that sort of like makes settling a little bit more of an easier, safer option for us.
Yvonne, I would like to get your view on that as well.
Yes, I agree with what everyone has said. I think a lot of women do settle, and it's because of maybe some women plan to have kids. Some women are unsure of their skill set, and so if this company has offered me a job, I'm lucky to have this job, so I should accept whatever they give me. But on the flip side, I think I'm also guilty of this. My last job, I just settled for what they gave me, and I should have probably asked for more. But I think women should be more. You should ask for more. Basically, look at what the rate is for whatever they're applying for. Is what a pay is. And I think women should also form allies with their male counterparts, and find people they can trust, who they can tell them be transparent about how much they're making, so that they know what is out there, and not shoot themselves in the foot.
I'd like to wrap this up. Thank you so much. So lastly, what can we do? What we've spoken about people that have inspired us, people that have broken barriers. What can we do to help the next generation to also push, like break more barriers individually? I'll come to you, Jennifer.
That's a really good question. And to be honest, I mean, I think, like, thankfully, so a lot of the women, a lot of the young girls in sort of in the generations that are sort of after us are already doing the things that I think, you know, I can only speak for myself. See, I class as a millennial, but like my little sister is technically a Gen Z, and within her age group and her friends, the things that they are asking for, and you know, and knowing their worth and asking for that is in asking for it in such bold and confident ways is much more than at that age, you know, when I was that age that I was asking for. So I do think actually the change has already started and was kind of, the ball's already rolling. But I think in terms of what more we can all do, I definitely think we all just need to almost be unashamedly ourselves, I think, and not subscribe to other people's version of what womanhood looks like, or what being a woman looks like. I think we are all women in such different ways, and some women absolutely love and want to be homemakers and want to be, you know, and want to be full-time mums, and that should be encouraged, and because if that's what they want. And some women want to absolutely break all of the glass ceilings, you know, and do all of, and I think it's important at this stage that we don't swing the other way, where we make it as seem as if being a homemaker and all those traditional roles are bad, or are, you know, you're sort of not a feminist if you want those things. I think we're in a really good place where we can balance those things and essentially just be the woman that you want to be, because that's what you want, not because that's what is being imposed on you. And hopefully globally we can get to that, and where, you know, women don't feel like they're being forced into positions because of, you know, the economy, because of, you know, like their family or societal pressures. So I think it's just important for those who can enable other women, but also enable yourselves, and to just live in the womanhood that you truly want to.
How about you, Gifty?
For me, an encouragement I can give is to really just track their achievements and their strengths, so that they know that even if they fall into a position that looks like amazing, that they know that they deserve to be there. And also just to create a support system that also encourage them to be who they feel God has called them to be, and also to enrich their knowledge bank, and to just not feel that they're imposters, in a good position, and just to fight for what they want.
And Barbara?
I think it should all start from home, just exposing little girls to everything that's out there, not just the housewife thing, but everything. Just exposure and being open and sharing. And career days at school are great as well, to see the range of careers that both genders can get into. So I think that's what we can do to help exposing children to everything, not just certain roles, not just certain gender roles for women. I think that's what would help us.
Okay, and Yvonne, lastly.
Yeah, I think, yeah, we should expose, you know, little girls and, you know, women coming up to, you know, all aspects of, you know, their interest, all the spectrum of their interest. And I also think that, to add to what Jennifer said, I think what has changed with the Gen Z is that they've seen other people. I think, okay, what I think has changed with us Gen Z is that there's technology, and so they see other people living their truth. And so I think in order to, you know, encourage or inspire the upcoming generation, we have to be able to be bold enough to live our truth. And so in so doing, we also like inspire them to live their own truth. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you, ladies. Listening to you all, I just enjoy being a woman. I wouldn't want to be anything else. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you all again soon.
All right. Thank you.